Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to come this afternoon. I just want to give a quick welcome to Francesca McGeary, coming all the way from the UK. She's been with us all week. She's been working with our teachers, our leadership, our admin, and just some really rich discussions around bilingual and multilingual learners. So I hope that you benefit from today, and please ask any questions, and we're all here to support if you need anything. Okay?
Thank you. Hands up if you yourself are a bilingual or maybe a multilingual. Yeah. No? Just Italian? No? 4. Yeah, she's got 4 going on. Awesome. So I myself am a bilingual. I was educated in French, but my parents spoke English at home. And then all the way through school, the teachers kept saying, you're silly, you can't learn, because it was all happening in French. And then I went off and I went to university and studied more languages, and then decided to become a teacher and support children who were like me. So those children who speak languages at home but don't speak English necessarily, I really sympathized with them and I wanted to know how I could help them. So hopefully over the next maybe 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to give you 20 years of experience and 3 years of research into how we can support our bilingual children. Because I used to live in the UAE and I worked for many years in Dubai. And during that time, I was seeing a lot of Arabic children who seemed to struggle a lot with bilingualism. So what I did was my colleague and I went away to do some research, which should have taken 6 months. But actually, it was after 3 years of bilingual research, we decided to write a book and then put a program together to help teachers understand how we can support our bilingual children, because bilingualism, like you say up here, it's a superpower. It's really a gift that we can give our children. We're not just giving them a language, we're giving them our heritage, our love, our family, our history, our food, everything. Even how we believe in customs. How we relate to time management. You know, in Spanish they say mañana, or in the Arabic world, inshallah. You know, sometimes we don't even have these concepts in other languages. Or when I come to the UAE, it drives me nuts when I go into a shop and there are 3 queues. And they just pick a queue. And they don't have the queuing system that we have back in, in the United Kingdom, where we have 1 queue but 3 places. So all of these cultural things really come with us, and then we bring our children into these English medium schools where there's a different culture, and our children have to try to fit in. So it's if you do your part at home and we do our part at the school, then our children will be super bilinguals. Now it's fascinating, through the research, we know there will be job opportunities in the future for our children if they're bilingual. They will be able to communicate. And having critical thinking and communication skills is key for the future. We know that. They will have a unique way of looking at things, because when you look through the eyes of the multilingual lens, so when I look, for example, through the Chinese and I look at the way the writers think, I'm seeing it through the eyes of a Chinese person, and that's a unique perspective. And your children will have that. Now, what's very interesting is that, to build a building in the UAE takes 2 years. The Burj Khalifa was built in how long? 3 years? Not that long when you think it's the tallest building in the world. But for us to grow our bilingual child, it's a long investment. Our return of investment is long. And there's a big commitment that has to come from you, and there's a long commitment that has to come from us. Okay? So what I wanted to share with you was a little bit of the research that we found over 3 years. And there's an eminent scholar in Toronto called Dr. Jim Cummins, and he's been studying second language acquisition, that's what your children are, in English, for 50 years. And interestingly, he coins the proficiency of a second language in 2 distinct phases. So what he calls the first stage is BICS, basic interpersonal communication skills. And what he says is that if children are immersed in a full English environment, so maybe they speak Spanish at home, and they come to the school and they're immersed with all their friends and their teacher, and the curriculum is all in English. If they come from a language that's very similar to English, so German, Dutch, or a European one, then they can master oral fluency in the language within 6 months. So they actually can get around the classroom, pick up your bag, stand up, put your chair behind your seat, and line up at the door. And they're doing all of that, and off they go. Yalla, easy. And we think, oh, my child's a genius. He's picked it up in 6 months. If your child comes from an Arabic or a Korean or a Japanese or Mandarin language, which is much more complex, it can take them up to 2 years to develop BICS. Now, usually what then happens is parents, after 6 months or 2 years, they think, oh, my child is fluent in English. Why do they need to come to ELL support? They don't need the English support because they're speaking fluently. Well, yes, they're speaking fluently because they have bring the ball over here and we can make a team. Easy language. Or yesterday I had a party. Very easy. But when you put your children in a school in English, we're not asking them for this level of English. We're asking them for the next level, which is cognitive academic language. So what happens is we expect our children to express themselves and learn through the language of English. So we give them much more complicated language that they have to use. And very often our bilingual children get stuck at that. And now, if we want to develop CALP, which means this gentleman was telling me that he thinks in English now, and now that he's in the Arab world and he spoke a little bit of Arabic, he's now thinking in Arabic, and that's exactly normal, because if we want our children to develop CALP, and we do if they come to an English medium school, then it will take up to 5 years or 7 years. Now, if they have a strong first language, so if your child comes to the school and they already are strong in their home language, it will be 5 to 7 years. So that means that if they come at the age of 5 and we work with them, by the age of 10 or 12, they've got CALP. They can now do bilingually Arabic English or Spanish English or French English. If they do not have a strong mother tongue, if you decide now they're here in this English-speaking school and you're going to stop your home language and you're going to only speak in English, then it will take between 9 and 11 years for your child to develop it. Too long. That means that they will always need support within the classroom by the teacher to access the learning. And we don't want that. We want it to happen as quickly as possible. So what we have to say to you is keep speaking your mother tongue at home, because it will be faster for us to help your children develop CALP. Now, what's going on in a child's brain? If we look at the blue line, this is a native English-speaking child. And through our research, we found out fascinatingly that a child generally learns 1,000 words a year. So that means that if I have a little baby and from 0 to 2, they're listening all the time to the English at home with me. And then from 2 until 4 years old, my little baby is starting to speak. Mama, give cup, mama, bed. And I go, whoa, that's great, great language. Now, because they've done the listening and the speaking, what comes next? What's the next stage of a language? Yeah, they're doing that through the speaking. So what comes next? Well done. Reading and writing. So guess what we do? We send them to school and they learn to read and write. Now, in the blue line, research shows that a little child who has spoken their language at home has 80% syntax of their first language by the age of 4. That's amazing. And they have 90% of the vocabulary they need at that age. So they have cat and door and bed and stop and eat and broccoli and all the vegetables and colors and dress and sock and all those words that in the child's environment, 90%. So when we start to take them to school, we're introducing them to the A, B, K. And they're learning to read the same language that they have 90% and 80% mastery in. So it makes sense that we start to teach them to read Abaca, and the child is reading I see a cat. Picture of a cat, I know I see a cat. We're just teaching them the writing, and they move on. Now, imagine your child, because you're in the red. So you have spoken Japanese to your child, because you're Japanese, all the way until the age of 5. And then you decide you're going to send your child to an English medium school. So your child will have 5,000 words in Japanese, but 0 words in English. So they're going to come to the school, And immediately they are 5,000 words behind the English-speaking child. But they have 5,000 words in Japanese. We can't forget that. That's good. So I was kind here, and I looked at the little bilingual and read, and I thought, they went to kindergarten for a year, so they have 1,000 words. So this little bilingual is 4,000 words behind. So what we have to do is we have to catch up. Your child has to catch up in the English-speaking world because they have to access the phonics that we start to teach the native children to do. So your job is to help us catch that up. And the only way you can do that is some tips that I'm going to give you later on, okay? Now, there are key stages in a bilingual child's development. If you look at the age of 10 years old, what we do in the English-speaking world when we're teaching our children to read is we take 3 years to teach phonics. Because English really isn't a phonetic language. We pretend it's phonetic. But we have to teach our children the short sounds, then the magic E, then 2 vowels go walking. The first one does the talking and says its name, and O-U-G-H, silent G, silent H, etc., etc., etc. It's a nightmare. So it actually takes us 3 years to teach our English-speaking children the phonics of our language. Now, I know in German, it's 6 weeks because it matches, each letter matches and never changes. Arabic is the same. It's a highly phonetic language, right? So I can decode Arabic, easy, I just don't know what I'm reading, right? So there are some languages that we are highly phonetic, but English is not one of them. So we take 3 years, and by the age of about 9, our children are independent readers. English native speakers are independent. And so, they go off and they take a book in the library and they read Roald Dahl or they read Harry Potter. And we really don't check their reading anymore because they've had 3 years of it, they know the vocabulary, and they fly. Now, at this age of 9, it's crucial because we're no longer teaching our children to read. They then switch and they are reading to learn. So they're extracting information from texts that we want them to know, and they tell us about it. But if a bilingual child does not have enough vocabulary, they can't do that. They're still 4,000 words behind, and they will never catch up. And then when they get to high school, there's a very critical stage by about grade 9, which we found in the research. Because at high school, the language is no longer simple. It becomes very metaphorical. We have idiomatic sentences and phrases. That means that we have a phrase like, it's raining cats and dogs. We say that from Shakespeare. It came in the Shakespeare plays, and it's now in our language. Now, it's raining cats and dogs. What does that mean? Are there cats and dogs falling? No. What does it mean? It's strong rain. That's right. But you have to inference that. You have to guess that. Oh, very lucky. So you're very similar to us. You're lucky. But other languages, what do you say in Arabic for it's raining cats and dogs? Same? No cats, no dogs? No? Okay, so you can understand that by high school, when we're no longer teaching in Shakespeare and all our plays and things, we're no longer looking at the words anymore. It's all the hidden meaning behind. And that's a key stage for bilingual children. If they haven't developed their strong enough mother tongue, they don't get this inferencing. And that's what we expect at DP. In the IB, DP, we fill our students with information. They have to synthesize this information themselves, and then they take out information in a new way. It's not listen, copy, copy. That doesn't happen anymore. So, what can we do to help our children at home? I'm going to give you 4 tips. Tip number 1, speak your language at home all the time. Even if you send your child to the school, don't switch to English. Speak your mother tongue. And just keep speaking. And even if they answer back to you in English, because they will be with their friends in English, they're in the school in English, and it's easier for them, keep speaking your mother tongue. Allow opportunities for them to Skype with granny or granddad or baba or whoever, and allow them to keep that practice. It's so important and it's key. If they have a strong mother tongue, we can excel their English quicker. The second tip, read to your child in your mother tongue. So I know some cultures don't do this, but from babies, we feed the baby, we bath the baby, and when they're in the little grenouille, the little frog suit, we lie them, and then we will read the story to them. And many of the things are nursery rhymes, because that gets the child ready for sound patterns. We expose them to very simple books, and they're looking at these things. All of that is deliberate developmental stages we do for our children to get them ready. And what we need you to do is to continue that with. So right from the word dot, if you can, read your language to your child, okay? Support your child's academic vocabulary. Now, this is the key to great bilingual standards. What happens is that very often our bilingual children, they are learning academic CALP in the school. So they will learn words like evaluate or soil, even in KG. They will learn synthesize, discuss, debate, many academic words. And they get that in English all the day, and then they go home, and you sit with your child and you say, hey, hello, how was your day? Excuse me. And your child says, oh, Mama, I fell out with Sarah. She was not good to me, Mama. And you say, how did you fall? Oh, I call her mother. No, Mama, not in the friend. She took my sandwich at lunch. And it becomes kitchen Arabic or kitchen German or kitchen Spanish. What happens is you just develop the BICs all the time because you don't have an opportunity to match the CALP that we're doing in the school. So what we'd like to see happening is that they will be having cognitive languages, that we're giving academic vocabulary to your children in the school. And we want to give that to you early at home so that you can maintain that in your home language. So if there is, for example, discuss, debate, evaluate, or there's area for math in grade 1, these are very complex words that we're expecting the children to know, and your children, remember, are a little bit behind the native speaker. So if you do it in your language at home, when they come to the classroom, they are the same as the English speaker. And then that can maintain all the way through school. So this is the key to supporting. This man has developed CALP in both, right? And I don't have CALP in both. I had CALP in French because I was in school, and then it switched when I went to university, and now I have CALP in English because all this research for 3 years is in English. So now all the technical terms I know in English, and I don't have CALP in French. So bilingualism is not a solid thing. It's a fluid thing that moves up and down, depending. If your child was educated or born abroad in a main host language where they spoke English, and your language is the minority, you've got to work hard at it. Because otherwise they're exposed all the time in English in the school, and then English outside, and then English with their friends, and English on the TV. And so the time that's spent with your child speaking your language is too little. It gets less and less. And the research shows that children need a meaningful contact, 30% of their time, or the language doesn't stick. So very often I get daddies coming to me saying, we have a problem with my child because, their mother is Greek, and I am Spanish. And we send our children to an English-speaking school. And I say, that's great. And they say, yeah, but my child doesn't speak Spanish. I'm so ashamed because when they talk to my mom and dad on Skype, my mother is saying, her Spanish isn't good. What do I do? What do I do? And I think, well, how much time do you actually spend with your child? Because very often the fathers, they're traveling to whatever for their work. When they do come home, they're only there at the weekend. And if you actually work it out, most of the time the child is spending sleeping in the day, then at school, then your language for the evening for 2 hours, and where's the daddy's time? Really? Hardly any. So how can we expect the child to speak the daddy's language if he's never there because he's working? So we have to be cognizant, we have to remember that it's how much effort you put in is how much comes out. Okay? And 4, encourage reading and writing in your language. So what I like to say to parents is have a journal, have a diary, maybe digitally. The kids are all digital literacy. What will happen is the children will have academic vocabulary sent home. And what I'd like to see is that you match that in your mother tongue. Now, you will have kids going, Mom, I don't like it, it's boring. You got to fight that. Because I see so many adults later on saying, oh, what a waste. My parents, they spoke Hungarian at home, but I only have it to BICS level. I don't have it to CALP because they didn't force me too much. When I wanted to go off and do football, they let me do it. So it depends on how much effort and time you place with the bilingualism, because otherwise what will happen is your child will become a subtractive bilingual. Now, our beautiful Arabic friends and family here, this is a very big problem in the Arab world, because in Arabic, the spoken language is very different to the written language. The spoken is a dialect, meaning the Jordanians, the Emiratis, the Omanis, the Egyptians all speak differently, but the same language is written because it's nothing like their spoken. It's actually like old Shakespearean English in a way. It's so old. And so the children have a difficulty getting into the written and keeping it because it's so difficult. And even when they go to Arabic classes every day, they're actually doing it at quite a superficial level very often because they're only learning it as a language. They're never learning math or science or PE or art through the language like they are in English. So very often, Arabic becomes like a second language. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to happen if you keep the academic language going. Okay? Keep calm. Don't panic. It is a long-term investment to be bilingual. But if that's who you are, it's your DNA, then give it to your kids because it will be worth it in the end. Okay? All right. So does anybody have any simple questions? Nothing complicated, please. Any questions? Yeah? Okay. Mhm. And they're schooled in English? Yeah. So they won't, no, it's not too late, but they won't be bilingual if you don't make the effort in Arabic. So you could turn it, if your husband has just as much Arabic as you do, then I would have Arabic at home and I would have English at school. And when the words come home from English, talk to them in Arabic about that. No, no, you can switch. Yeah. Yeah. In English. Yeah. The school. That depends on the child. So very often when children are exposed to another language, we have a silent period for 6 months. They may never even speak it and they're just listening to it. And then we have, in the school right now, we have lovely twins, a little boy and a girl, and they speak, I think, Finnish or something. And the little boy is in his language, the teacher, he's like looking at her going, why don't you understand me? But he's never spoken a word of English yet. And yet the little girl, she's now been here for a month and she's already picking up a few words. So they're different learners. Their style of learning is different. So it really depends. But I would definitely recommend that you keep that academic language going, because what they're going to be doing in the Arabic classes is going to be prose. It's going to be narrative. It is. And so it's not going to be the academic, and so they will become subtractive. Be strict about it. You just have to be strict about it. And I know it's punishing, and parents say, "Oh, I give up." But yeah, I know. It is very difficult, but she does. She does. Oh, okay. But you need to, what I would recommend that you do is, and I had a photocopy, but I didn't bring it, sadly. Take a timeline of every 2 hours in the day. So do so midnight to 2 a.m., 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, and do it all the way through a day. Do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then actually time out how much language exposure your children are getting. And if it's no more than 30%, it won't stick. It just won't. So then maybe you need to take them to classes. You know, maybe you might have to take them to German classes if you really want it. But I think it's lovely that, you know, a Greek man meets a Polish lady and they speak Portuguese and they send their child to an English school and they're living in Belgium, which speaks French. I love that. I really love that. But I think you need to think at the end of the day, where do I want my child to be schooled in academically? Because it's not possible to have 5 languages going like that, maintaining it. You're going to go nuts. So select 2 in your life if that's possible, and then focus on those 2. Or if you think, no, my child's going to go back to the States, and really they're going to be educated in the States, then have them at BICS level in your language. Try to continue and maintain your home language when you're back in the States, but then English will be their academic language. And that's not a bad thing, but you just have to be aware that bilingualism is constantly moving back and forth. To have a simultaneous bilingual is very rare. Very rare. No, I'm saying that, like, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Now, interesting. When I went to Lebanon, they have English, Arabic, and French going on all the time. And they're saying to me, hey, we have no problem with trilinguals. You know, we have these people thinking in 3 languages. Yeah, we are very good. You know what the Lebanese are like, right? We are so genius. And I'm thinking, no, yeah, they love it. But the reason that it's so successful in Lebanon is because the whole of Lebanon works that way. So when the children are going out into the street, they're hearing Arabic, they're hearing English, they're being schooled in French. So, but that doesn't happen here. And so if you were in Canada, your children would be exposed outside to English, so you wouldn't have to worry about it. They'd have it at school. Your job would be to maintain the Arabic. Your husband would be to maintain the French. Now you're here, that flips. They're in a host country where Arabic they're going to hear all the time with their friends. They're being educated in English, so you have to focus on the French a little bit. So it depends where your children are exposed to those languages and how often. So if you go back to Canada, you got to flip it. Yeah? Oh no, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Haram, haram. Videos and the TV. Yeah. They're not as fun. Yeah. Yeah. Well, did, mhm. Well, your child is a subtractive bilingual, right? They were exposed to Arabic. They had probably 2,000 or 3,000 words. They came into an English environment. They did not have 2,000 or 3,000 words when an English child did, and they have to catch up. So if you put them in an environment in a school and the teachers are aware of that and they give them an enriched literacy, then your child will now become a subtractive bilingual where they have been exposed to Arabic. This is very common in the Arab world because the literature and the books are, it's not that they're boring, but it's difficult to read Arabic. It really is. And also, the culture, you know, when you were Bedouins and going around in tents, you didn't take books with you. It's an oral culture, which is all storytelling. So again, it's all oral. So the children are very good at the oral language in Arabic. It's very beautiful. It's very flowery. And so we have to develop the culture that you know, I'd like you to read maybe 3 books in English, but 1 book in Arabic to please mummy. Maybe 3 books in English again and 1 book in Arabic. And she loves you, she'll do it. And then you just build that up. Yeah? You mean native or non-native Arabic? because they don't have enough language. You haven't done it at home enough. See, this is the issue. So when the IB comes to the DP where they do language A or language B, what I'd love to see is that your child has the option to either do Arabic A or Arabic B, right? They have that choice. Possibly it will be that they will do English A and they will get a really high score in Arabic B because they have it to such a high level. But I don't know how they work it here in the school with how they decide if your child goes to a native or non-native. Or is it passport? Well, it could be also the level of the Arabic written or how they speak it. Do you know what I mean? So for this particular country, I don't know how they do. Oh, right. You can choose. Yeah. Yeah. Like a native. But because he's got a French passport, he goes to French class? Oh, he's not. Mm. Oh, I see. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, this is what happens is that when we send our children off to learn French or Japanese or Chinese as a foreign language, they're only really developing BICS. We're not asking them to do CALP. So they will have a sentence like la voiture rouge, right? That's just transferring simple knowledge. The red car, la voiture rouge. Give them a simple text. J'aime le croissant. I like croissants. We're never asking them to learn a mathematical concept through the language of French. So your son probably was of too high a level of the level of the classes. That's why they never sent him there. What I would recommend is that if the school doesn't offer your language, then you send them to an after-school thing to maintain it. Then go outside. You have to, yes. Yeah. Okay, so who's the parent? They don't want to do it anymore. See, this is it. If they decide, then make them sign a contract when they're 8 or 9 saying, Mama, I don't want to do it, because when they're 18, they'll come back to you saying, Mama, why didn't you make me do it?
Yeah, I know. We keep saying
So, yeah. Yeah, it is. It is.
they have teachers here at school.
Mhm.
They don't offer lessons after school, but just
Yeah. Yeah. But you see, that there is issues with the school too, because if there's only your children and there's 200 Greek children, I can understand that it makes sense that they offer it to Greek children and there's only one French child. So there's got to be a balance too within the schools. And ultimately, the bilingualism is your responsibility of your child. If you wish to maintain it, then it's up to you to do that. And how you do that, I mean, you've got 4 going on. Goodness me. You know, it's really which ones do you want to concentrate on and pursue that. So maybe the time you're in the UAE, work on the English and concentrate on one language. And then if you move to another country, you will get exposed to, if you go to France, you're going to get exposed to French. Okay, but
normally
yeah. So German and England then. German and English, yeah. 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 I think you need to do a little plan. I think you really need to sit and do a plan. So everybody's situation is different. That's really what it is. And decide for yourself how much effort you really can make. And then look at your husband and say, make more effort too with your language. Otherwise, they're going to drop it. Okay? So thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come. Honestly, thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.